Hey guys, before we crack on with this video, I just wanted to let you know that due to how in-depth the characters are in Mortal Kombat 11, I actually have to make these videos two parts. So, this video two parts because otherwise SHAREfactory actually won't let me release it, and I don't think it would be worth it to make a tutorial video that's over an hour long. So, these will be one character at a time, but they'll be uploaded twice a day. So you'll get both characters regardless. So, just so you know, don't forget to be awesome, and please enjoy the new video. Hello, ladies and gentlemen! It's not just Injustice that's getting guides now. I've had people asking me to do guides for Mortal Kombat ever since I started doing the Injustice guides. And well, today's the day. Thanks to a particular friend of mine who had a particular interest in these two characters. We're going to be talking about Fujin and Shang Tsung today. Now this is going to be probably a bit longer than the Injustice 1 tutorials because we're covering two characters, yes, but we're also covering 3 different competitive variations for every version of said character, meaning that, oh boy, we're gonna have a lot to talk about. Fortunately, Shang Tsung actually has all 3 of his competitive variations pre-built in, like I accidentally built them, so there you go. So I'll just be running them with different names. I don't think I have any for Fujin though, so we're gonna have to do things a little bit different for Fujin. And as always, we'll be covering different stages as well, starting with the Retrocade. Alright, so we're starting off with Tournament Master, which I believe is... Yes, it's this is basically Variation 1 Warlock. But we're going to start off with universal attacks, including anything that he has that is not a combo. Yes. So, Rising Chest Kick. Very fast advancing high attack. So you got to be careful when you throw this out, but you have another option, Rushing Spike. Same sort of thing, similar range, but it's an overhead. And this will actually Crushing Blow. I'm going to actually make sure that the Crushing Blows are on for this. Rising Chest Kick will Crushing Blow if this beats either if this beats, as in punishes, a get-up roll. For damage. One-time cash out of damage at 24%. Not bad at all. Also, one thing I should keep in mind, this is a universal thing. All characters have an uppercut, Crushing Blow. Most of you probably know this, but for those who don't, who are just getting into Mortal Kombat 11, if you counter or punish a high attack, that includes throws, you get Fake Boy launching damage. And Shang Tsung, I forgot, actually has a Crushing Blow throw. If Shang Tsung has just morphed into himself, after he has stolen the person's soul, he has about a second to land a back throw, to get a Crushing Blow, to get a potential combo starter going. Let's see, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. I can tag up to 10 different things in this game, which makes things so nice. So nice. Okay, so that's gonna have to be where it ends for now. Dark Arts starts off with a very quick high. And fun fact, the nice thing about Mortal Kombat 11 is that in the training mode you get frame data. So, starts off with an 8 frame high, knocks the opponent back as a mid, and you don't get OP per se, but this is really good, particularly if you want to zone with Shang, because look at this range. You're almost full screen. Bad Omen is a combo extender that comes off of this. You get 22 frames to do what you want. Usually throw a fireball, get some distance, steal a soul, what have you. Soul Torment
comes off of a actually fairly good mid. 14 frames, and it covers decent range. This is a good punish option. You don't get combos off of this per se, but this is a good way to knock the opponent back. Reserved Pain is similar, but has an overhead. And if only the overhead hits, Crushing Blow launch. Burning Vigor comes off of a fairly quick high at 9 frames. Has a little bit more range than this jab, but not by much. And if you dial in... Oh, you have to dial this next part in. Up 2, down 2, you gotta dial in. For a little extra damage, and it knocks the opponent right at soul-sucking range. Actually, I think it's basically the same as... Oh, it totally is. It puts you back at start of the round range. So you can actually straight up sweep, or just about sweep with Shang Tsung. That's definitely really good to know. Playtime knocks the opponent down, and I would use this for your ender, just because it's easier to do. And while you get a little bit more damage off of Burning Vigor, depending on the combo scaling, you might not get all the hits. So Playtime would probably be your better ender. Then we have Death Trap. This comes off of a 15 frame mid that hits around Shang. So even an opponent who decides to teleport could potentially get clipped by this. The middle part with the 2 presses of 1 have to be dialed in. But the 4th hit doesn't have to be. But here's the fun thing. It's a true projectile. So look at all the space that Shang controls with this one attack. He controls the close range, he hits you with the overhead, and bop, you're at full screen. And while I believe this move can be dodged by things like Jade's dodging shadows, it cannot be reflected to my knowledge. I'll have to test that later. And if you ever have any questions about a character in the lab, take them to the lab and give it a try. Trust me, that's what I do some days. I'll just get a question and I'll end up in the lab and I'll try something new. Lo and behold, something works that I didn't think would, or vice versa. Burning Evil comes off of this 17 frame mid, not overhead. I get caught by this a lot. This is a mid, and what I get caught by is that there's a low in the middle. So I instinctively stand up to try and block this, and the low catches me. The final hit is pretty unsafe on block, but what it does do is that it lets Shang Tsung in the corner get combos. Not Crushing Blow uppercut combos, because that's technically a no-no, but you get the idea. Tipping the Scales is a faster version of the attack that doesn't Crushing Blow. Or that does not combo, but it does Crushing Blow. If it is a counter or a punish. The problem is that Tipping the Scales and the Rushing Kick have the same Crushing Blow. So if you get one, you do not get the other. So be extremely careful with that, so that you don't accidentally end up doing this, the one Crushing Blow you didn't want to burn. And then Soul Stealer, this is the one that doesn't change, or that doesn't require dial-up. Allows for some sick sorcery skills to knock the opponent back with some tricksy lows. Next we have... Oh, that's right, there's a couple more strings. Just a couple more, though. Deadly Truth comes off of this 10 frame low, which, by the way, is only... It's technically his slowest natural low that isn't in a combo. Like, it's his lowest low normal, except for his sweep. However, this has pretty good range. Not sweep range, but pretty close. And if you connect this, depending on how your opponent was blocking, if you go for the overhead, that gets damage, or combos, or just cash it out for damage with a Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe reference. But if the opponent expects the overhead, just go low. It's a sweep, knocks them low, and keeps them really close for Oki. Get your throws on. Which reminds me, Tsung has a throw that's weaker than other throws. His forward throw does less damage. However, it heals him for 2%. It's not much, but sometimes this could come in handy in a clutch situation. So just remember that. Shang Tsung has a lot that's going on with him. And we're just going to do universal special moves, or at least quasi-universal special moves, next. The kinds of things that you would expect in base Shang Tsung. This is base special moves right now. Fire Skull. Fairly quick projectile. Covers good distance. Lets you zone. You can usually amplify this just once to catch an opponent who's trying to jump. But Variation 1 Warlock, which I have Tournament Master on just for a little bit of variety's sake, is definitely worth keeping in mind. Oh, also, I forgot to mention short hop attacks. All of these, nothing to write home about, but his short hop punch is active for 7 frames, while his kick is only active for 2. So I would actually recommend most of the time going for his short hop punch, unless you think you can catch them with the better range of Le Boot. Soul Steal does exactly what you expect. Shang Tsung steals the opponent's soul, and for a limited time gains a 20% damage boost while assuming the form of the opponent. He can amplify this further to be the opponent for longer. Long enough, in fact, for me to get 2 throws off with Fujin, even with Fujin's really bad dashing. This does not have a crushing blow, but it's still a really good one. A really good combo ender because you end it in the combo and then you become the opponent and then you get to flex on them. The only tricky thing is that this requires that you know at least a little bit about the character you are absorbing. So if you're not keen on that, maybe stay away from Soul Steal, which would be weird, but it is what it is. Corpse Drop! Overhead projectile. It's slow. It's actually almost twice as slow as the skull. But what it is placeable. Is a placeable overhead. You have close, mid, far, then full. And normally, this becomes an overhead low mix for decent damage just to keep the zoning going. But I don't know if it's in a variation. I believe it is, but there should be a variation, or I might be mistaken, but I believe there's a variation that lets Shang Tsung launch with this, but I'll have to check. Sorcery Rush. It's Shang Tsung's electric slide. Doesn't cover a lot of range, but it's a mid slide instead of a low, so you can potentially catch some jumping opponents with this. It's not active for long, and I believe it is minus on block, but this is also a good way to end combos, even if it itself does not amplify. Now let's talk about his tournament moves. In Tournament Variation 1 Warlock, which is right now in Tournament Master just because I want to show off some skins as well, although for some characters I might just do the tournament variations just to make it easier. Might even be a thing in the future. Shang Tsung becomes very traditional. He gets Soul Steal and a lot of his traditional attacks, and he can amplify Fire Skull twice to get the 3 skulls that we know him for. And if the 3rd skull hits on its own, it will Crushing Blow. So if I get Fujin to just duck, just like Sonya Blade's Energy Ring, this will Crushing Blow if only the 3rd one hits. Whether that's because the opponent blocked the first 2 and didn't expect the 3rd one, or because the opponent was ducking and didn't remember that the 3rd skull is indeed a mid. And finally, we have Ground Eruption. This is a 2-slot ability, but there's a good reason for that. 15 frames and it knocks the opponent back. and can combo. Which means you can do stuff like this. You can get stuff like steal your soul. And now I get to use your move. And that's another thing about Shang Tsung. When Shang Tsung steals an opponent's form, he gains access to their crushing blow throws. Actually, he gets access to all of the opponent's crushing blows. However, any that are unique to Shang Tsung in requirement or what have you will be preserved. But if Shang Tsung steals your soul, then does the uppercut crushing blow, he can't get it again. So just be careful of that. Also, one thing I noticed is that they kind of changed how... normally these are supposed to do less damage. So that crushing blow throw did the same amount of damage as a normal throw. However, the uppercut, where he breaks the jaw, does 20 damage instead of 50 damage. And if I absorb Fujin's soul one more time, I get 152 damage, unless, instead of when Fujin does it, I'm just going to give this to both, control player 2, so when Fujin does it, and he gets 240 damage. So you get less damage, considerably so in some cases, but when you land another opponent's crushing blow to finish a round, it is so satisfying. Time to move on to Variation 2. Variation 2, which is known as Spell Master, not Master of Souls, but I like the name, replaces Shang Tsung's Fireball with Screaming Soul. This does more damage on its own. It's slower, but Shang Tsung can hold it to trick opponents, cancel it for bar, combo into it, and because it's a beam, it's harder to avoid because it's got quite a wider horizontal hitbox than the skulls do. So, this complements this string really well because it knocks them back with a beam and then you start firing the beam. If you amplify it, he almost throws it up to the scroll and the scroll fires the beam a la Superman for a 12% damaging mid that just wipes the entire screen. There's almost no avoiding this. Then we have Soul Well. This creates a little interactable that hangs out above the stage and doesn't really go away. Shang Tsung can absorb it right away to gain 4% health right away. However, this kind of acts like Kotal Khan's Blood Totem in a key way. 5% or 25% of the damage that he deals gets added to that base 4% and he heals it. So, while it's active, which I don't know how long it's actually active for, but it's active for a really long time. And every hit you do allows Shang Tsung to keep going. It looks like it's active for about as long as the totem. So it's active for about 10 seconds. You zone this out, zone them out, and then you absorb. Boom. I got almost 14% of my health back. That's a full uppercut's worth of health back. Scatter Souls is a quick, short-range blast that can be charged. Every camera shake, 1, 2 is a level, and then 1, 2, 3 becomes really big. You can amplify it at any time to stun the opponent. But it doesn't really combo into anything unless you really stun the opponent. It has to be the kind of thing that you hit with the opponent, that you surprise the opponent with, and they're open for like 72 frames. So you dash in and hit them with something. However, there's a neat little caveat. there's a very neat little caveat. What if the opponent breaks away? Let's say the opponent breaks away due to a crushing blow uppercut. Well, this attack breaks armor. And when it attaches, and when it breaks armor, the opponent is left wide open. Look at that. You're not quite as open. You're open for about 62 frames, which is still a full damn second. But it gets even better. Shang Tsung can store levels. Now it's fully charged. Look at that. Look at that easy, almost 37% damage. Just off of a good punish. And remember, at full size, it can hit opponents without you even needing to dash again. Okay, I messed up the input there, I'll admit. But, the idea is still there. And if you're really good, you get one of these going. And now all of a sudden you're the opponent. Keep the opponent back, and your soul is mine. Didn't even need to amplify. But in the corner, I've seen this happen, and I'm not totally sure how it is done, but I've seen it happen in the corner, where if I do this, I can kind of get this into the stun. It's really tricky though. There it is. You can get it in the corner where it loops into itself, which means you get obscene amounts of damage. If I can actually have the execution to do this. That's the tricky thing though, you gotta work on your execution for that, but if you get it, it is so good. Look at this 48% combo I just sneezed out. And in fact, if you guys are fans of the Condiment Brothers, as I call them, P&D, Ketchup, and Mustard, they did a Touch of Death combo in this variation with Shang Tsung versus Johnny Cage. Now, it only works against one variation of Johnny Cage in the corner with extremely good execution, but it's still a Touch of Death, which is something I didn't think I'd ever see in Mortal Kombat 11. Now let's talk about his third competitive variation. Palette Swap, as I've called this variation, although it is actually called Soul Eater, is a very interesting take on Shang Tsung, and the one that we were very excited about. This only has one ability, technically. However, I can't tag the amplify. I'm going to... Nah, it's okay. I lose if I pick this competitive variation of Shang Tsung. I lose the Soul Steal, and I lose Corpse Drop. So I lose an overhead projectile, and I lose... my ability to become the opponent. However... How some the fuck ever, I gain 4 abilities. They're all ninja based, they all have crushing blows, and they're all oh so good. Let's start with Ermac. Mortal Kombat 9 Ermac's Force Lift. Doesn't combo raw, but amplify, you get a combo. So, let's say you get this string, and boom, look at that, easy combo. Then we have, but I forgot to mention that Force Lift has a crushing blow. It's terrible and you'll never see it, but it's true. if Shang Tsung, if you block late, basically if you mistime a flawless block, Shang Tsung gets a little more damage off of his launch if he amplifies it. It's a terrible crushing blow, and you'll never see it. But you do get the normal raw lift afterwards. So if you are lucky enough to ever see this crushing blow, capitalize on it. But it's so rare, you'll never see it. Just to keep that in mind. Next up is Shake, in which he basically does his best smoke impression. You can hold the X button. You can hold 3 to delay. So I'm actually going to drop that in lieu of the rest of this attack. And then I'm going to record Fujin firing a projectile. That's all he needs to do. Just needs to fire a projectile. Because this is a projectile parry. Which also has a crushing blow. However, its crushing blow is that you have to parry an attack twice in a row. Doesn't matter what it is. And the amplified version can parry physical attacks. You parry an attack twice in a row, you get yourself a crushing blow with this. You'll get this more often, way more often than most of the crushing blows, because if you're good with your parries, bada bing, bada boom, and you're at close enough range to amplify to parry a physical attack. Then we have Slide, Reptile Slide, which side switches. This, I believe, replaces the Sorcery Slide as well. So you don't have Sorcery Slide, but you do have an equivalent, so what it does is that it turns the slide into a low and it covers a lot more range. It almost covers full screen, and it side switches. If you hit this from full range, you get a crushing blow. You gotta space this out really well, but you can totally get this crushing blow relatively easily once you figure out what the maximum range is. The best way to do that, and the best way I usually do it, when I'm trying to figure out crushing blow requirements, is I will keep the crushing blow requirements off, and then figure out what I think maximum range is. I think it's here. Yes, it is. A jump back from the start is enough to get that. At least for the most part. Usually, there's a little bit of fidelity with maximum range, but generally speaking, that's about what maximum range looks like for the slide. So beware, keep that in mind. Super kick. Turn into rain to super kick the hell out of your opponent. You can cancel out of it, and you can hold it. And this requirement is actually very interesting. If you do it right after a cancel, you get the crushing blow. But you still have to amplify it in order to get a combo. But you still get a combo with a little extra cheddar. Look at that! I used all 3 ninjas in one combo. Pretty sweet. Well, I said all 3. I didn't end up using smoke, and actually, I didn't end up using Shang Tsung's Fatal Blow. Shapeshifter's Barrage. This is a short-range super attack that is really good for cashing out matches at the end. Cashing out combos and things. It's 3 active frames, and it's very close, but it's 25 frames to start up. Combo into this thing. Don't throw it out randomly in the neutral, otherwise you'll never see it. And in case you're curious about if Shang Tsung can steal opponents' super moves, he can, but remember, he can't in this variation. So you need to bear that in mind. This is the variation that I would recommend you go to if you want a relatively simple Shang Tsung, because you still have your projectiles, and you still have your basic projectiles in the form of your Fire Skull, but everything else is ninja based. You get your lift, you have a slide that replaces your slide, you don't have access to the corpse drop or your soul steal, but you don't need all of those moves in this variation because of all of the ninja shenanigans. And also, you get to pull off cool combos like this. Right here, land it. Look at that. 5 separate ninjas. This isn't the most optimal Fatal Blow combo with Shang Tsung across his variations, but in this one, it's pretty good. Almost 50%. So overall, Shang Tsung is a very tricksy kind of character. You gotta keep in mind his range at all times, his tricky sorcerer strings, and the fact that he gets crushing blows in very unexpected ways as well. Not to mention that in most of his variations, he can become the opponent. So he can turn a disadvantageous matchup, like say in variation 1 if he's going against Jade. Jade can keep most of his projectiles out, and it's also bad if he's going against Jade in variation 2 because the projectiles just get ignored because she decided to wear purple. Because she decided to wear purple that day. However, you absorb the opponent's soul, you gain their moves, including the projectile immunity, including their crushing blows, including their super moves. And the fun thing is, Shang Tsung will get their super move with a damage buff. At least for the first part. At least for the part before the cinematic. But this is still enough to potentially squeak out a win. Doing almost 34% instead of 32% could make all the difference. But he doesn't get 2 fatal blows if he does this. He only gets 1, otherwise he only gets either or, so he needs to be careful when he applies it. Just know a little bit about what the character does and what the buttons are, and Shang Tsung is very much a character I would recommend.